The cargo ship rattled as it docked with Velcor Station. Daeho wiped the sweat from his forehead and let out a long breath. He had made it. 3 days through asteroid fields and past pirate territory, all to deliver medicine that nobody else would carry. The job was supposed to be impossible. 5 other crews had refused it. But Daeho needed the money, and humans on the frontier always needed the money. The docking clamps locked into place with a heavy thud. Daeho powered down his ship's engines and stood up from the pilot's seat. His back ached. His hands were shaking from too much stimulant coffee and not enough sleep. But he was alive and the cargo was intact. The station administrator's message came through on his comm panel before he could even unbuckle his safety harness.
Pilot Daeho, report to my office immediately.
Your payment is waiting. Daeho grabbed his jacket and headed out. Velcor Station was massive, one of the biggest trading hubs in the outer sectors. The corridors were crowded with aliens of every type. Tall ones with forearms, small ones with scales, others that looked like walking crystals. Humans were rare here, and the looks Daeho got reminded him of that fact. Some aliens stepped aside to let him pass. Others deliberately bumped into him, testing to see if he would react. He kept walking. Fighting was stupid when you were outnumbered 1,000 to 1. The administrator's office was on the upper levels, where the air was cleaner and the lighting was better. The administrator himself was a Draxian, a species that looked like upright lizards wearing expensive suits. His name was something with too many clicking sounds, so most humans just called them all Sir, and hoped for the best. Ah, the human pilot. The administrator's voice came out with a hiss. I am impressed. I truly did not expect you to survive that route. Daeho said nothing. He had learned that silence was often the best response when dealing with aliens who saw humans as barely civilized. Your payment has been transferred to your account. The administrator tapped something on his desk. Triple the original amount as promised. But I find myself in a generous mood. You have done me a service and I wish to reward you further. Daeho's stomach tightened. In his experience, when powerful people wanted to give unexpected rewards, there was usually a catch. Come with me, the administrator said, standing up. I have something special to show you. They walked through corridors that Daeho had never seen before. These areas were restricted, marked with symbols that meant private in a dozen different languages. Eventually, they reached a large room filled with glass pods. Inside each pod was a living being, suspended in some kind of stasis field. These are recreational companions, the administrator explained. Pleasure workers, if you prefer the crude term. They are provided to valued business partners and successful contractors. You may choose one as a bonus for your excellent service. Daeho stared at the pods. The beings inside were all humanoid, all modified in some way. Some had extra limbs. Others had skin that glowed. All of them wore collars around their necks, and all of them had numbers tattooed on their shoulders. I don't need, Daeho started to say. Nonsense, the administrator interrupted. You humans spend so much time alone in your little ships. Surely you would appreciate companionship. These creatures are trained for every need. They do not age quickly. They do not complain. They are perfect servants. Daeho felt sick. He knew that slavery existed in the galaxy. He had heard stories, but seeing it like this, laid out so casually, made his hands curl into fists. I insist, the administrator said, and his tone made it clear that refusing would be an insult. Choose one, or I will choose for you. Daeho walked slowly past the pods. He did not want any of them. He did not want to be part of this system, but refusing might mean losing future jobs, or worse, creating an incident that could affect other humans trying to work in this sector. He stopped in front of one pod. The being inside was female, humanoid, with pale skin that had faint blue markings running along her arms and neck. Her hair was long and dark. Her eyes were closed in stasis. On her shoulder was tattooed RC7731. What species is she? Daeho asked quietly. The administrator looked surprised by the question. Does it matter? She is a recreational companion, model RC. Very popular series. What species? Daeho repeated. The administrator sighed, as if Daeho was being deliberately difficult. He checked his datapad. Original species designation was Linnae, though that name is archaic. The Linnae were conquered 4 generations ago. This one is 3rd generation bred for service. She has been modified to be more appealing and compliant. Daeho looked at her face. Even in stasis, she looked tired. I will take her, he said. Excellent choice. The administrator seemed pleased. I will have her delivered to your ship along with her ownership documentation and maintenance protocols. I do not want the ownership papers, Deho said. The administrator blinked. Excuse me? I do not want ownership papers. Just have her brought to my ship. But you must have documentation. How else will you prove she is yours at other stations? How will you process her through customs? I will figure it out, Deho said firmly. The administrator stared at him for a long moment, then made a dismissive gesture. Humans, so strange. Very well. She will be delivered within the hour. The papers will be available if you change your mind. Deho returned to his ship and waited. His mind was racing. He had no idea what he was going to do. He could not own another person. His grandmother had told him stories about Earth's history, about the terrible things humans had done to each other. He would not repeat those mistakes. An hour later, 2 station workers brought her to his cargo bay. She was awake now, standing between them with her head bowed. She wore a simple gray dress. Her feet were bare. The collar around her neck had a blinking light on it. Where do you want it? One of the workers asked. She is not an it, Deho said. And she can stand here. Thank you. The workers shrugged and left. The cargo bay door closed behind them with a hiss. Deho and the woman stood in silence for a long moment. She did not look up. She seemed to be waiting for something. What is your name? Deho asked. She flinched slightly at the question. This unit is designated RC-7731. No, I mean your name. What do people call you? This unit responds to creature or any designation you prefer. Deho felt his heart break a little. You deserve a name. A real name. She looked up at him for the first time. Her eyes were a strange amber color, beautiful and sad. She seemed confused, as if he was speaking a language she did not understand. I will call you Hana, Deho said. It means one in my language. Because you are the first person I have met here who deserves better than what this galaxy has given you. Hana stared at him. A single tear rolled down her cheek. She did not wipe it away. My name is Deho, he continued. I am a cargo pilot. I am going to take you away from here. And I promise you I will never treat you as property. Hana's lips moved, but no sound came out at first. Then quietly she whispered, Hana? Yes, Deho said gently. Hana. She repeated the name to herself, testing how it felt in her mouth. For the first time in her entire existence, someone had given her an identity that was her own. The ship jumped into faster-than-light travel, and the stars outside the viewport stretched into long white lines. Hana sat in the co-pilot's chair, watching them with wide eyes. She had traveled through space before, many times, but always in cargo holds or service compartments. Never in the cockpit, never where she could see the universe flowing past. Deho was checking the navigation systems, making sure their course was set correctly. They were heading to New Pyongyang, a human colony world 3 days away. It was a small settlement, nothing like the massive stations and planets of the older alien civilizations, but it was home. Are you hungry? Deho asked, not looking up from his instruments. Hana did not know how to answer. She had been fed nutrient paste at regular intervals for as long as she could remember. Hunger was not something she was supposed to feel or mention. She was supposed to simply function. I have real food, Deho continued. Not much, but enough. Rice, some dried vegetables, instant soup, simple things. This unit does not require special feeding, Hana said automatically. Deho finally looked at her. His face was kind, but also sad. Your name is Hana, not this unit, and everyone requires food. Come on. He stood up and headed toward the small galley area at the back of the cockpit. After a moment's hesitation, Hana followed him. The collar around her neck felt heavy. She was aware of every movement she made, every breath she took. Years of conditioning told her to be graceful, to be appealing, to anticipate what the owner wanted before they asked. But Deho did not seem to want anything from her. That made everything confusing. The galley was tiny, just a heating unit, a small storage cabinet, and a fold-down table. Deho pulled out packages of instant rice and dried soup. He added water and turned on the heating unit. The smell that filled the small space was strange to Hana. She had smelled food before, but always from a distance. always from the meals of others. "It will be ready in a few minutes," Deho said. "Sit down." Hana sat on the small bench attached to the wall. She kept her hands folded in her lap, her back straight, her expression neutral. This was how she had been taught to sit. Deho noticed. "You can relax, you know. You are allowed to be comfortable." "This unit is comfortable," Hana said. "Hana," Deho corrected gently. "Your name is Hana." She felt something strange in her chest. A tightness. "Hana," she whispered. The food finished heating. Deho poured the soup into 2 bowls and spooned rice beside it. He placed 1 bowl in front of Hana, along with a spoon. Then he sat across from her with his own bowl. Hana stared at the food. Steam rose from it in gentle curls. "Go ahead," Deho said, already eating his own meal. "It is not fancy, but it is warm." Hana picked up the spoon carefully. Her hands were shaking slightly. She lifted a small amount of soup to her lips and tasted it. The flavor exploded across her tongue. Salt, vegetables, something she could not identify. It was overwhelming. She had spent years eating nutrient paste that had no taste, no texture, nothing. A sound escaped her throat, something between a gasp and a sob. "Are you okay?" Deho asked, concerned. Hana nodded quickly. She took another spoonful, then another. She tried to eat slowly, to maintain her trained composure, but the food was too good, too real. She found herself eating faster, desperately, as if the bowl might disappear. Deho watched her quietly. He did not comment on her lack of manners. He simply refilled her bowl when she finished. "When did you last eat real food?" he asked. Hana thought about it. Memories from before her training were fuzzy, suppressed by the modifications they had made to her brain. "I do not remember," she finally said. "Maybe when I was very young, before they took me." "Took you?" "Children with the right genetic markers are selected," Hana explained, her voice flat. "We are modified, trained. By the time we are fully grown, we are ready for assignment." Deho's jaw tightened, but he said nothing. He simply nodded and continued eating his own meal. After they finished, Deho showed Hana the rest of the ship. It was not large. A cockpit, the galley, a small bathroom with a sonic shower, and 1 sleeping compartment. The sleeping compartment had a single bed, a storage locker, and nothing else. "You can sleep here," Deho said. "I will sleep in the cargo bay. There is a spare cot down there." Hana felt panic rising in her chest. "I do not understand. Where do you want me to sleep?" "Here, in the bed." "But this is your space." "I should sleep in the cargo bay or in whatever space you designate for me." Deho shook his head. "You are not cargo, Hana. You are a person. People get beds." "But what about you?" "I will be fine in the cargo bay. I have slept in worse places." He smiled a little. "Much worse places, believe me." Hana did not know what to say. Nothing in her training had prepared her for this situation. She had been taught to please, to serve, to anticipate needs. But Deho's needs seemed to be that she should take care of herself. It made no sense. "What do you want from me?" she finally asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Deho met her eyes. "Nothing, Hana. I want nothing from you except that you start learning what it means to be free." "I do not know what that means. I know that is why I am going to help you learn." That night, Hana lay in the bed alone. It was soft, far softer than anything she had experienced in years. The room was dark and quiet, except for the gentle hum of the ship's engines. She stared at the ceiling and tried to process everything that had happened. She had a name. She had eaten real food. She was sleeping in a bed. And Deho had asked nothing from her. No performance, no service, no compliance. She did not understand him. In her entire existence, everyone had wanted something from her. She was created to be wanted, to fulfill purposes. But Deho seemed to want her to be something else. something she did not know how to be. The next morning, Hana woke to find that Daeho had already been awake for hours. He was in the cockpit, checking systems and adjusting their course. When she entered, he looked up and smiled. "Good morning, Hana. Did you sleep well?" "Yes," she said, and realized it was true. She had actually slept, not just entered rest mode as she had been trained to do. "Good. I made coffee. Would you like some?" Hana had never had coffee before. She accepted the cup he offered and tasted it carefully. It was bitter but also good in a strange way. She found herself liking it. They sat together in the cockpit as the ship traveled through the emptiness between stars. Daeho explained how the navigation systems worked, pointing to different displays and instruments. Hana listened carefully. She had always been quick to learn. It was part of her modifications. "Why are you teaching me this?" she asked. Daeho looked at her. "Because knowledge is freedom. The more you know, the more choices you have. And choices are what make us people, instead of things. I was taught that choices are burdens, that being told what to do is easier. Easier maybe, but not better." Daeho turned back to the controls. "My grandmother used to tell me stories about Earth's history, terrible stories about times when some humans treated other humans as property. She said the worst crime was not just the physical suffering, but the theft of choice, taking away someone's ability to decide their own life." Hana thought about this. But what if I make wrong choices? Then you learn from them and make different choices next time. That is how people grow. I do not know how to grow. I only know how to be what I was made to be. Daeho reached over and gently touched her hand. It was not a gesture of ownership or control. It was simple kindness. "Then we will learn together. I do not know how to teach someone to be free. But I know that every person deserves the chance to try." Hana looked down at their hands. In that moment, something shifted inside her. A small crack in the walls that had been built in her mind. She did not know what lay beyond those walls, but for the first time in her life she wanted to find out. New Pyongyang was a small planet, mostly covered in farmland and scattered settlements. From orbit it looked peaceful and simple. Daeho guided his ship down to the main spaceport, which was really just a large cleared area with some landing pads and a control tower. Compared to the massive stations Hana had seen, it was almost primitive. "Home," Daeho said softly as they descended. "Not much, but it is ours." Hana said nothing. She was nervous. The collar around her neck had started bothering her more and more during the journey. It marked her as property. She wondered what the humans here would think when they saw her. The ship landed smoothly. Daeho powered down the engines and stood up, stretching. "Come on. I need to report to the Colonial Administration and submit my flight logs. You can come with me or you can stay on the ship. Your choice." There was that word again. Choice. Hana thought about it. "I will stay on the ship." "Okay. I should be back in a couple of hours. Help yourself to anything in the galley." He paused. "Hana, you are not staying because you are afraid, are you?" She was afraid, but she did not want to admit it. "I just need time to think." Daeho nodded, accepting her answer. "Take all the time you need." After he left, Hana explored the ship more thoroughly. She looked at everything with new eyes, trying to understand this human who had shown her such strange kindness. His belongings were few. Some clothes, a few photos of people she did not recognize, a small wooden box containing letters written on actual paper. She picked up one photo. It showed a younger Daeho standing next to an old woman. Both of them were smiling. On the back was written, "Grandmother's 80th birthday." Hana stared at the faces for a long time, trying to understand what that kind of relationship felt like. Daeho returned sooner than expected and his face was troubled. "We have a problem," he said. Hana felt fear spike through her. "What kind of problem?" "The administrator from Velcor Station has filed an official complaint. He claims I stole you. He is demanding that you be returned immediately." "Then I should go back," Hana said automatically. I do not want to cause trouble. No. Daeho's voice was firm. You are not going back to that place. But if I do not go back, what will happen to you? To your colony? I do not know yet. The colonial governor wants to meet with both of us. Governor Bo-young was a stern woman with gray hair and sharp eyes. Her office was simple, decorated with images of Earth and old Korean paintings. She looked at Hana with an expression that was hard to read, then turned to Daeho. Explain to me exactly what happened, she said. Daeho told her everything, about the delivery, the reward, the choice he made. He did not try to hide anything or make excuses. Bo-young listened in silence. When he finished, she leaned back in her chair and sighed. You understand the position this puts us in. We are a young colony. We cannot afford to make enemies of the major trading stations. I understand, Daeho said, but I will not send her back. Even if it means trade sanctions against our entire colony? Even if it means other humans here suffer because of your decision? Yes. The word hung in the air like a challenge. Bo-young turned to Hana. What do you want? If you choose to return voluntarily, this situation could be resolved quickly. Hana opened her mouth, ready to say she would go back. It was the logical choice. The safe choice. But then she thought about the name Daeho had given her, the food she had tasted, the bed she had slept in, the feeling of sitting in the cockpit and seeing stars. I want to stay, she whispered. I want to learn what freedom means. Bo-young studied her face for a long moment. Then she nodded slowly. Very well. Daeho, you have created a mess, but it is a mess that matters. Give me time to think about how to handle this. Over the next few days, the situation grew worse. Messages came from the Velcor administrator, each one more threatening than the last. Other alien trading partners expressed displeasure. Some threatened to stop doing business with New Pyongyang entirely. The colony had only been established for 12 years. It was still dependent on trade for many essential supplies. Daeho was called to several meetings with the Colonial Council. Hana waited in his small apartment during these meetings, feeling guilt crushing down on her. She listened to the colonies, news broadcasts, and heard people debating about the pleasure creature situation. Some supported Daeho. Others said he was being selfish, that one person's freedom was not worth the suffering of thousands. On the 5th day, Hana made a decision. While Daeho was at another meeting, she went to the spaceport. She planned to contact the Velcor administrator herself and arrange for her return. It was the only way to end this, but at the spaceport she found someone waiting for her. A human woman with kind eyes and calloused hands. Her name was Yoon-suk, and she was the colony's doctor. I thought you might come here, Yoon-suk said. Daeho asked me to watch for you. He was worried you might try to sacrifice yourself. I am causing harm to everyone, Hana said. I should go back. Maybe. But let me show you something first. Yoon-suk took Hana to the colony's small archive building. Inside was a simple museum, showing the history of humanity. There were displays about wars, slavery, civil rights movements, images of suffering and struggle, but also images of people fighting back, demanding to be treated as human beings. This is what we came from, Yoon-suk explained. For thousands of years, humans hurt each other. We enslaved each other. We told ourselves it was necessary, that it was just the way things were. But some people always fought against it. They paid terrible prices for that fight. They suffered. They died. But slowly, things changed. Hana looked at the images. She saw faces of people who looked determined and afraid at the same time. When we left Earth and came to the stars, we promised ourselves we would not repeat those mistakes. Yoon-suk continued. We promised we would build something better. If we send you back to save ourselves, we break that promise. We become the thing we swore we would never be again. But people are suffering because of me, Hana said. People are suffering because the galaxy has built its wealth on slavery, Yoon-suk corrected. That is not your fault. Daeho is giving us a chance to stand for something that matters. Yes, it is hard. Yes, there will be consequences. But some things are worth the cost. Hana felt tears on her face. She did not try to wipe them away. I do not understand why you care about me. I was made to be used. You were made by people who were wrong, Yoon-suk said gently. Being made for a purpose does not mean that purpose is right. You are alive. You can think and feel and choose. That makes you a person, and people deserve freedom. That evening, Daeho returned to his apartment to find Hana waiting for him. She had prepared food using the supplies in his kitchen, following instructions she found on his computer. It was clumsy and not very good, but it was her first attempt at creating something. I talked to Yoon-suk today, Hana said as they ate. She showed me Earth's history. Did it help? Daeho asked. It made me understand why you do this, why you refuse to send me back even though it causes problems. And I want to stay. Not just because I am afraid of going back, but because I want to see what kind of person I can become. I want to try. Daeho smiled. Good, because Governor Bo Young called me an hour ago. She has a plan. What kind of plan? A risky one. There is something called the Tagran Gauntlet. It is a race through dangerous space, very dangerous. Most people who try it do not survive. But if I complete it, if I win, the administrator has agreed to drop all claims on you. It is a matter of honor in his culture. If I succeed, you go free. Hana felt fear grip her. And if you fail? Then I pay triple your assigned value, and you return to Velcor Station. You could die. Yes. Then do not do it, please. It is not worth your life. Daeho reached across the table and took her hand. Hana, you are worth it. Every person is worth it. That is what being human means. 3 weeks. That was all the time they had before the Tagran Gauntlet began. 21 days to prepare for something that killed more racers than it allowed to finish. Daeho tried not to think about the statistics. 60% mortality rate. Only 12 humans had ever attempted it, and only 2 had survived. Neither had won. The day after the challenge was announced, Daeho's apartment filled with people. The entire engineering crew from the spaceport showed up, led by a man named Taemin who had more metal in his body than original parts. He had been a ship mechanic on Earth before coming to New Pyongyang, and he knew every trick for keeping old vessels alive. Your ship is decent, Taemin announced after inspecting the Frontier's Hope. But decent will not win the gauntlet. We need to make it exceptional. I do not have money for major modifications, Daeho said. Did I ask for money? Taemin snorted. You are flying for all of us. If you win, you prove that humans can compete with anyone. If you win, you save that girl and show the galaxy that we stand for something. Money does not matter. For the next 2 weeks, Taemin and his crew practically lived in the ship. They stripped out unnecessary weight. They reinforced the hull with composite materials donated by the colony's small manufacturing plant. They upgraded the engine cooling system using parts salvaged from 3 different wrecked ships. Every change was carefully calculated to give Daeho the smallest possible advantage. Hana watched them work with fascination. She had never seen people cooperate like this, all working toward a common goal without any system of ownership or control forcing them. When she asked Taemin why he was helping, he just shrugged. Because it is the right thing to do. Sometimes that is reason enough. While Taemin worked on the ship, a woman named Youngja worked on Daeho. She had been a fighter pilot during Earth's corporate wars, back when different megacorporations had private armies and fought over resources. She had flown combat missions through asteroid fields and debris clouds. She knew how to survive in chaos. The gauntlet is not about speed, she explained during their first training session. It is about survival. You need to think 3 moves ahead. You need to read space like a predator reads prey. She put Daeho through simulations, each one more difficult than the last. She taught him how to use gravitational fields to slingshot around obstacles, how to read sensor patterns to predict asteroid movements, how to fly so close to danger that his ship's alarms would be screaming, but not so close that he would die. After each session, Daeho would return to his apartment exhausted and shaking. Hana would have food ready and they would eat together while he told her about what he had learned. She listened carefully to every word, absorbing the information even though she did not understand why she felt compelled to learn it. Why do you want to know about navigation? Daeho asked her one evening. Hana was quiet for a moment. Because if I understand what you are doing, maybe I can help somehow. Hana, you do not need to help. This is my responsibility. You are doing this for me. That makes it my responsibility too. Daeho wanted to argue, but he saw the determination in her face. So instead, he started teaching her everything Youngja had taught him. He showed her navigation charts and explained how to calculate safe routes through dangerous space. He taught her how to read sensor displays and identify hazards. Hana learned faster than he expected. Her modified brain could process multiple data streams simultaneously, a trait that made her valuable in the pleasure industry because she could read and respond to complex social cues. But that same trait made her an exceptional navigator. She could look at a tactical display and immediately see patterns that took Daeho minutes to recognize. You are good at this, he told her one night. I was made to process information, she said, but there was something new in her voice. Not pride exactly, but satisfaction. She was finding purpose in something beyond what she had been designed for. As the days passed, more people came to help. Yoon-suk ran medical tests on both Daeho and Hana, making sure they were in peak physical condition. She created emergency medical protocols and loaded them into the ship's computer. She taught Hana how to treat common injuries that might occur during the race. The colony's small defense force donated a salvaged shield generator. It was old and temperamental, but it might save their lives in a critical moment. A group of farmers contributed supplies, enough food and water for a month just in case. The school children made a banner that read, "Come home safe," and hung it at the spaceport. Governor Bo-young visited the ship 3 days before the race. She walked through the modifications in silence, then turned to Daeho. Do you truly believe you can win this? She asked. I do not know, Daeho admitted, but I have to try. Why? Why risk so much for one person you barely know? Daeho thought about how to explain it. My grandmother told me that the measure of a civilization is not its technology or its wealth. It is how it treats those who have no power. If we send Hana back to slavery because it is convenient, because it is safe, then what are we? We are just repeating the mistakes that almost destroyed humanity on Earth. Bo-young nodded slowly. I agree with you. But agreement does not make this easier. Half the colony thinks you are a hero. The other half thinks you are a fool who will get us all killed. I am not sure which half is right. Maybe both, Daeho said with a slight smile. The governor almost smiled back. Maybe. Good luck, pilot. The whole colony is counting on you. On the last night before they had to leave, Hana could not sleep. She sat in the cockpit of the ship, looking out at the stars. Daeho found her there around midnight. Cannot sleep either? He asked, sitting in the pilot's chair. I am scared, Hana admitted. What if something happens to you? What if you die because of me? Then I die knowing I tried to do the right thing. There are worse ways to go. I do not want you to die at all. Daeho reached over and took her hand. Over the past weeks, this gesture had become natural between them. Not ownership, not control, just connection. Hana, I need to tell you something important. If I do not make it, Governor Bo-young has promised to protect you. She will not let them take you back. The colony has voted on it. They will face the consequences together rather than betray you. Tears rolled down Hana's face. Why? Why would they do that for me? Because you are one of us now. Because once people start seeing you as a person, they cannot unsee it. That is the thing about freedom, Hana. It is contagious. Once one person has it, others start wanting it too. They sat in silence for a while, holding hands and watching the stars. Finally, Hana spoke again. I want to come with you. Into the gauntlet. What? No, absolutely not. It is too dangerous. You need a navigator. Youngja said so. She said the best pilots have co-pilots who can handle the sensors and calculations while they focus on flying. That is true, but I have been studying the navigation charts. I have memorized the gauntlet route. I can process multiple data streams faster than your ship's computer. You know I can help. Daeho wanted to refuse. The thought of putting Hana in danger made him feel sick. But he also knew she was right. The best chance of survival was having someone skilled handling the sensors and navigation. If you come, you might die, he said quietly. If I stay, you might die. At least if we are together, we face it together. You gave me a name, Daeho. You gave me a choice. Now let me choose to help you. He looked at her face, seeing the determination there. She was not the same person he had taken from Velcor Station. That person had been hollow, waiting to be filled with someone else's desires. This person was becoming something new, something that had her own desires and her own strength. Okay, he finally said. We do this together. Hana squeezed his hand. For the first time since he had known her, she smiled. It was a small smile, uncertain and fragile, but it was real. Thank you, she whispered. Thank you for letting me be more than what I was made to be. The next morning, they loaded the last supplies onto the ship. Half the colony came to the spaceport to see them off. Taman checked every system one final time. Youngja gave Daeho a last piece of advice. Trust your instincts, and trust your co-pilot. As they strapped into their seats and began the launch sequence, Hana felt something she had never experienced before. It was not happiness exactly. It was not even confidence. It was purpose. She was choosing to face danger for something that mattered. She was choosing to stand beside someone who had shown her kindness. The ship lifted off, climbing toward the stars, toward danger, toward a test that most people failed, but also toward possibility, toward a future neither of them could predict. As they broke atmosphere and the planet fell away beneath them, Daeho looked over at Hana. Ready? She met his eyes and nodded. Ready? The starting point for the Tagran Gauntlet was a massive space station called Razor's Edge. It existed purely to service the race, built over generations by various criminal organizations and wealthy thrill-seekers. When Daeho and Hana arrived, they found 29 other ships already docked. Each one was impressive, built by species that had centuries more experience with space travel than humanity. Their ship, the Frontier's Hope, looked small and crude by comparison. Do not let them intimidate you, Daeho said as they walked through the station. Aliens of every type stared at them. Some pointed. Others laughed. Humans were rare in the gauntlet, and most species still saw them as barely civilized. The pre-race briefing was held in a large chamber. A holographic display showed the route, through the shatter belt, across the veil, and finally into the maw. Each section was designed to kill. The race officials, who belonged to a species that looked like upright insects, explained the rules in clicking voices. There are no rules, the lead official said. You may use any means necessary to win. Weapons, sabotage, ramming, only the finish matters. Begin when the signal sounds. Good fortune to those who survive. Daeho felt Hana tense beside him. He reached over and squeezed her hand briefly. They had prepared as much as possible. Now they just had to execute. The next morning, 30 ships arranged themselves at the starting line. The Frontier's Hope was positioned near the back. Daeho ran through his pre-flight checks while Hana calibrated the sensors and navigation systems. Her hands moved quickly across the controls, confident now after weeks of training. All systems green, she reported. Good. Remember, we are not trying to be first. We are trying to survive and finish. That is all that matters. The starting signal sounded. 30 ships burst forward simultaneously, engines flaring. The race had begun. The first section, the Shatter Belt, was an asteroid field with gravitational anomalies. The asteroids moved in unpredictable patterns, sometimes suddenly changing direction as gravitational wells shifted. 3 ships were destroyed in the first 10 minutes, crushed between asteroids or torn apart by gravitational stress. Asteroid cluster ahead, Hana called out. 3 large ones, multiple small fragments. I see them. Calculating approach. Daeho flew with the skills Youngja had taught him, using momentum and timing rather than brute engine power. Bigger ships could push through obstacles with stronger shields. The Frontier's Hope had to be smarter. Gravitational shift in Sector 4, Hana said, her voice calm. Major asteroids changing trajectory. How long until impact? 30 seconds. New route calculating. There, sending it to your display. Daeho saw the new path and immediately adjusted course. A massive asteroid passed behind them, exactly where they would have been if they had not changed direction. Several other ships were not so lucky. 2 collided trying to avoid the same hazard. The Shatter Belt took 3 hours to cross. By the time they emerged, only 20 ships remained. The Frontier's Hope was in 12th place. You are doing amazing, Daeho told Hana. Your calculations are perfect. Thank you. But the next section will be harder. She was right. The Veil was a region of intense radiation storms, invisible to the eye but deadly to most electronic systems. Ships with advanced shielding could push through with minor damage. Ships without such protection had to be creative. Radiation levels increasing, Hana reported as they entered the Veil. Shields holding for now, but they will not last the entire crossing. Then we use the asteroids as cover, just like we practiced. The strategy was simple but risky. Small asteroids drifted through the veil, and their mass provided some protection from radiation. By flying close to them, using them as shields, they could reduce exposure. The problem was that flying that close to asteroids at high speed was extremely dangerous. Asteroid target ahead, Hana said. Size appropriate, trajectory stable. Daiho brought the ship alongside the asteroid, matching its speed and direction. The radiation levels dropped immediately. They flew like this for 20 minutes, until the asteroid's trajectory started taking them off course. Next asteroid, coordinates on your display, Hana said. They jumped from asteroid to asteroid, using each one as temporary shelter. Other ships tried to use superior speed to simply blast through the veil, but the radiation was too intense. Systems began failing. One ship's engines cut out completely, leaving it drifting helplessly. Another ship's navigation failed, and it veered off course, disappearing into the radiation clouds. Ship approaching fast from behind, Hana suddenly announced. Large vessel, military configuration. Daiho checked his rear sensors. One of the bigger ships was closing on them rapidly. What are they doing? I think they want to use us as a guide. They see our strategy working and they want to follow. Great, as long as they just follow, that is fine. But the ship did not just follow. When the Frontier's Hope moved to the next asteroid shelter, the larger ship tried to cut them off, attempting to claim the position for itself. Daiho had to swerve hard, nearly clipping the asteroid. They are trying to kill us, Hana said, her voice tight. Not kill, just force us out. To them, we are just lesser competition. The larger ship tried the same tactic twice more, each time attempting to force the Frontier's Hope away from the protective asteroids. Daiho had to fly dangerously, taking risks that made his hands sweat. I have an idea, Hana said suddenly. Do you trust me? Yes. Then when I say jump, accelerate to maximum and follow my navigation exactly. The larger ship closed in again, preparing to cut them off from the next asteroid. Hana watched the sensor displays, calculating timing. Now, she shouted. Daiho slammed the engines to maximum. The ship lurched forward. Hana's navigation path appeared on his screen, a route that went impossibly close to 3 different asteroids in rapid succession. Daiho followed it precisely, trusting her calculations completely. Behind them, the larger ship tried to follow, but the pilot was not prepared for the tight maneuvers. The ship clipped the second asteroid, not enough to destroy it, but enough to throw it off course. It spun out of control and fell behind, its shields failing as radiation flooded its systems. That was insane, Daiho said, breathing hard. But it worked, Hana replied. There was something new in her voice. Pride, maybe, or satisfaction at using her abilities for something she chose. They emerged from the veil 4 hours later. Only 14 ships remained now. The Frontier's Hope had moved up to 8th place. Last section, Daiho said. The Maw. The Maw was the most dangerous part of the gauntlet. It was a decaying stellar remnant, a star that had collapsed and was pulling space itself into strange patterns. Time moved differently in some areas. Gravity wells appeared and disappeared randomly. The laws of physics became suggestions rather than rules. I do not understand how we navigate through this, Hana said, looking at the sensor readings. Nothing makes sense. The numbers contradict themselves, because instruments cannot read this space properly. Young Ja told me about this. She said the only way through the Maw is intuition. You have to feel it rather than calculate it. I do not know how to do that. Yes, you do. Close your eyes. Do not look at the displays. Just feel the ship, feel the space around us. Your modifications give you enhanced perception. Use it. Hana closed her eyes. At first she felt nothing but fear. But then slowly she began to sense something. It was like there were currents in space, invisible rivers flowing in patterns she could almost touch. Her mind, enhanced to read complex social and emotional cues, found a different application. She could feel where space was stable and where it was twisted. Left, she whispered. Turn left and then wait. Something is coming. Daiho turned left. A moment later, a gravitational well appeared exactly where they would have been, strong enough to tear their ship apart. Forward now, Hana continued, her eyes still closed. Steady course. There is a safe path, like a road. I can feel it. For the next hour, Hana guided them through the Maw using nothing but instinct. Daiho followed her directions exactly, even when they made no logical sense. Other ships were not so lucky. They relied on their instruments, on calculations and predictions. One by one, they disappeared into gravitational anomalies or were torn apart by spatial distortions. When they finally emerged from the maw, only 3 ships remained. The Frontier's Hope was in second place, just behind a massive racing vessel built by one of the oldest civilizations in the galaxy. "The finish line is 30 minutes away," Deho said. "But we do not need to win. We just need to finish." "No," Hana said, opening her eyes. They were bright with determination. "We need to win. Not for me, but for everyone watching. For everyone like me who has been told they are less than others. We need to show them what we can do." Deho looked at her and saw someone completely different from the hollow person he had taken from Velcor Station. This was someone who had found herself, who had discovered strength and purpose. "Okay," he said. "Let us win." He pushed the engines as hard as they would go. The ship ahead was faster, but it was also damaged from the maw. Deho flew with every skill he had learned, closing the distance meter by meter. Hana watched the sensors, calling out optimal routes and warning him of every hazard. With 5 minutes until the finish line, they pulled alongside the lead ship. The other pilot, an alien from a species known for the celebration at Razor's Edge Station, was massive. Thousands of spectators had watched the race, and most of them had bet against the human ship. The upset victory had cost gambling houses millions. But tradition demanded that winners be honored, regardless of how inconvenient their victory might be. Deho and Hana were brought to a grand hall where the Velcor Station administrator waited. His face showed barely controlled rage, but he was bound by honor to fulfill the agreement. In front of hundreds of witnesses and recording devices, he spoke the ritual words. "The human pilot has completed the gauntlet and claimed victory. All debts are void. All claims are released." He looked directly at Hana. "You are no longer property of Velcor Station. You are free." The words were simple, but they changed everything. The collar around Hana's neck, which had marked her as property for her entire life, was removed. She touched her bare neck, feeling the absence of that weight. Tears rolled down her face. Deho put his arm around her shoulders. "You did it. We did it." "No," Hana said softly. "You did it. You gave me the chance to be free. And you earned that freedom. You navigated us through the maw. You saved us in the veil. You are the reason we won." The celebration continued for hours. Other racers, even those who had lost, came to congratulate them. Some were genuinely impressed. Others were simply curious about the humans who had achieved the impossible. But all of them now saw Deho and Hana as equals, at least in this moment. News of the victory spread across the galaxy faster than light speed. Media organizations broadcast the story on thousands of worlds. A human cargo pilot and a freed pleasure creature winning the Tagran Gauntlet. It was the kind of story that captured imagination. But not everyone was happy about the story. 3 days after the race, Governor Bo Young received a formal delegation at New Pyongyang. The delegation represented the Hethrin Consortium, one of the largest economic powers in the galaxy. They brought an offer that seemed too good to refuse. Deho and Hana were called to the governor's office to hear it. The lead diplomat was a tall alien with smooth gray skin and too many fingers. He spoke in perfect human language, showing respect that had not been common before the race. "Your victory has caused quite a stir," the diplomat said. "The human pilot who freed a slave and proved his worth through trial. It is a compelling narrative." "It is not a narrative," Deho said. "It is what happened." Of course. But narratives have power, and this one has created certain complications." The diplomat pulled up holographic displays, showing economic charts and political maps. "You see, the galactic economy depends on various forms of biological servitude. Engineered species, modified workers, pleasure creatures like your companion here. Billions of them exist across thousands of worlds." "Slaves," Hana said quietly. "You mean slaves." The diplomat looked uncomfortable. "The terminology varies by culture. But your story has inspired questions. If one servitor can be freed and prove themselves capable, what about others? Already we are seeing incidents of resistance. Workers refusing tasks, servitors demanding names and rights. It is creating instability." "Good," Deho said. "You may think so. But instability has consequences." The diplomat gestured and the holographic displays changed to show human colonies, including New Pyongyang. "Humanity is still new to galactic civilization. You depend on trade, on technology sharing, on cooperation with older species. What if that cooperation ended? Governor Bo Young leaned forward. What exactly are you proposing? A compromise. The Hethron Consortium is prepared to offer substantial benefits to all human colonies. Advanced technology, favorable trade agreements, full partnership status in several galactic councils, resources that would transform your settlements from struggling outposts into prosperous worlds. In exchange for what? Deho asked, though he already knew. In exchange for a simple public statement. You would acknowledge that your companion's case was unique and special, that while you respect her freedom, you also respect the existing galactic laws regarding biological servitude. You would promise that humanity will not interfere with established labor practices. The room went silent. Deho felt sick. They were being asked to sell out everyone like Hana for technology and comfort. And if we refuse? Governor Bo Young asked. Then I fear the consequences will be severe. Trade sanctions, technology embargoes, diplomatic isolation. Your colonies are fragile. Without support from older civilizations, many of them might not survive. How long do we have to decide? 48 hours. I'm sorry to rush you, but the situation is becoming urgent. More resistance incidents occur every day. After the diplomat left, Bo Young called an emergency session of the Colonial Council. Representatives from every settlement on New Pyongyang gathered to debate the offer. Deho and Hana were asked to attend. The debate was heated. Some council members argued passionately for accepting the offer. They spoke about children who needed better medical technology, farmers who struggled with equipment that constantly broke down, miners who died in preventable accidents because human tools were primitive compared to alien ones. We cannot sacrifice thousands for the sake of principle, one counselor argued. Yes, slavery is wrong, but we are not in a position to fight the entire galaxy. We need to survive first. Others disagreed. If we accept this offer, what are we? We left Earth to build something better. If we compromise on this, we compromise on everything that matters. Deho listened to it all, feeling the weight of responsibility crushing down on him. This had started with a simple act of giving someone a name. Now thousands of people were being forced to choose between prosperity and principle. Finally, Governor Bo Young asked him to speak. Deho stood up slowly. He was not good at speeches. He was a cargo pilot, not a politician. But everyone was looking at him, waiting. I understand why some of you want to accept the offer, he said. I understand the fear. I understand the practical concerns. But I want to tell you about something my grandmother taught me. He paused, gathering his thoughts. She told me about a time on Earth when some humans owned other humans. When people justified slavery by saying it was economically necessary, that society would collapse without it, that fighting against it was impractical and idealistic. And they were right about the practical part. Ending slavery did cause economic disruption. It did cause conflict, but it was still the right thing to do. He looked around the room. If we accept this offer, we tell the galaxy that we are willing to look away from evil when it benefits us. We tell billions of enslaved beings that their suffering matters less than our comfort, and we tell ourselves that principles can be bought. Hana stood up beside him. She had not planned to speak, but now she felt she had to. I was created to be property, she said, her voice shaking slightly. For my entire life, I was told that my purpose was to serve, that I was not truly a person, and I believed it because everyone around me believed it. The system seemed natural and unchangeable. She looked at Deho, then back at the council. Then one human gave me a name. He treated me like a person, and suddenly I could see that the system was not natural. It was a choice. If you accept this offer, you tell everyone like me that we should accept our chains. But if you refuse, you tell us that freedom is possible, that someone cares, and that message will spread farther than you can imagine. The council debated for 6 more hours. It was close, much closer than Deho had hoped. But eventually they voted, 15 votes to reject the offer, 13 votes to accept it. Governor Bo Young sent the response to the Hethron Consortium diplomat. New Pyongyang would not compromise on sapient rights, regardless of the economic consequences. The response was swift. Within a week, trade sanctions hit human colonies across known space. Several major alien corporations refused to do business with human merchants. Technology sharing agreements were canceled. Diplomatic channels went cold. The colony of New Pyongyang began to suffer. Supply shipments stopped arriving. Essential equipment broke down with no replacement parts available. The medical center ran low on advanced medications. People started getting angry. Deho became a controversial figure. Some people still saw him as a hero. Others blamed him for the hardships they now faced. Someone spray-painted traitor on his apartment door. He received threatening messages daily. Hana suffered even more. Some colonists openly said she was not worth the price they were paying. Others avoided her, as if her presence reminded them of their suffering. One night, Daeho found her sitting alone in the dark, crying silently. "I should not have stayed," she whispered. "You should have let me go back. Then none of this would be happening." Daeho sat beside her. "Do you know what I think about when things get hard? I think about the fact that you have a name now. That you can make choices. That you smiled for the first time in your life. Those things are real, Hana. The hardship we face now is also real, but it does not erase what we gained. But people are suffering. People were already suffering. We just chose not to ignore it anymore. That is not a comfortable choice, but it is the right one. How do you know? What if we are wrong? What if the cost of the first message arrived 6 weeks after the sanctions began? It came through an encrypted channel, bounced through a dozen relay stations to hide its origin. When Hana opened it on her personal terminal, she found only 3 words. "My name is Rena." Hana stared at the message, not understanding at first. Then it hit her. Someone like her, someone who had been called a designation instead of a name, was reaching out. She replied immediately. "My name is Hana. Who are you?" The response took hours to arrive. "I'm Linne, like you. I work on a mining station in the outer sectors. I saw the broadcast of your race. I saw them remove your collar. I have been designated RC9924 for 16 years. But my mother called me Rena before they took me. I had forgotten until I saw you." Hana felt tears streaming down her face as she read the words. She was not alone. There were others who remembered or were discovering that they could be more than their designations. Over the next weeks, more messages came. Dozens, then hundreds. They came from servitors across the galaxy, beings who had been engineered or modified or conquered and forced into service. Each message started the same way. "My name is..." They were not planning rebellion. They were not organizing resistance. They were simply declaring that they existed as individuals. But that simple act was revolutionary. Hana shared the messages with Daeho. Together, they read stories of beings who had spent entire lives as property, who were now asking the dangerous question, why? "This is bigger than us," Hana said quietly. "This is bigger than I ever imagined." "It started with you," Daeho replied. "With your courage to accept a name and choose freedom. Now others see that it is possible." But the messages were not the only thing happening. On dozens of worlds, small acts of resistance began occurring. A group of engineered laborers on a factory station stopped working for an hour, asking to be addressed by names instead of numbers. A pleasure worker on a luxury liner refused to perform, standing silently until security removed her. A modified soldier asked his commanding officer why he fought for people who did not see him as a person. Each incident was small. Each one was quickly suppressed. But together they created ripples that spread across the galactic economy. Work slowed. Efficiency dropped. The beings who had been treated as organic machines were revealing themselves to be something more complicated. The Hethran Consortium and other major powers tried to respond with force. They increased security. They adjusted modifications to suppress independence. They relocated troublesome servitors to isolated locations. But the more they tried to suppress the movement, the more it grew. Meanwhile, New Pyongyang continued to suffer. The sanctions were taking a heavy toll. Food was rationed. Medical supplies ran critically low. The colony's population dropped as some families decided to leave, seeking opportunities on worlds that had accepted the consortium's terms. Daeho tried to help where he could. He ran cargo missions to colonies that would still trade with them, often at personal risk. He worked in the fields, helping with harvests when automated equipment failed, but he could see the strain in people's faces, the exhaustion and frustration. One day, a young colonist named Ji-woo confronted him at the spaceport. Ji-woo's daughter had died from a disease that could have been easily treated with advanced medical technology. The technology they no longer had access to because of the sanctions. "You killed my daughter," Ji-woo said, his voice hollow with grief. "Your pride killed her." Daeho had no defense. The accusation was not entirely fair, but it was not entirely wrong either. "I am sorry," he said quietly. "I am so sorry. Sorry does not bring her back. Sorry does not feed hungry children or fix broken equipment. Your alien friend is not worth this price. Deho wanted to argue, to explain, but what could he say? That principles mattered more than a child's life? He could not say that because he did not believe it. He believed the situation was more complicated, that the real blame lay with those who enforced the sanctions. But he knew that argument would sound hollow to a grieving father. That night, Deho sat alone in his apartment, questioning everything. Had he been wrong? Had his simple act of kindness caused more harm than good? He thought about giving up, about asking Hana to return to servitude voluntarily, about finding some way to end the suffering his choice had caused. But then Governor Bo Young contacted him. "Come to my office. There is something you need to see." When he arrived, he found the office crowded with people. Timon was there, and Youngja and Yoon Suk, several council members, and on the holographic display, representatives from a dozen different alien species he did not recognize. "These are the Accord of Free Worlds," Bo Young explained. "Species that are either newly spacefaring like us, or older species that disagree with the current galactic power structure. They have been watching our situation." One of the alien representatives, a being that looked like a floating jellyfish, spoke in translated words. "We admire your principles, humans of New Pyongyang. Your refusal to compromise has inspired us. We wish to propose an alliance." Over the next hour, the representatives explained. They were offering trade agreements, technology sharing, and diplomatic support. Not as much as the Hethran Consortium had offered, but enough to help the colony survive. In exchange, they asked only that humanity continue to stand for the principles of sapient rights. "This will not make you rich," the jellyfish being said, "but it will allow you to endure. And sometimes endurance is its own form of victory." Governor Bo Young looked at Deho. "What do you think?" "I think we accept," he said. "And I think we do more than just endure. I think we help build a real alternative to the current system." The alliance formed slowly over the following months. Trade routes opened, technology flowed. The situation on New Pyongyang stabilized. It was not prosperity, not yet, but it was survival with dignity intact. Meanwhile, the movement among servitor species continued to grow. It gained a name, the Named. Beings across the galaxy who had declared themselves as individuals, who wore their names as badges of identity. Hana became a symbol for the movement, though she never sought that role. She spent her time working with the colony's communication network, helping to relay messages between different groups of servitors, creating safe channels for them to organize and support each other. 1 year after the Tigran Gauntlet, Hana received an invitation. The Galactic Council wanted her to appear as an observer, to speak about the movement and the issues surrounding biological servitude. It was not full representation, not yet, but it was acknowledgement that she and others like her existed as more than property. Deho went with her to the council headquarters, a massive station orbiting a neutron star. They walked through corridors filled with representatives from hundreds of species, many of whom stared at them with hostility or curiosity. When Hana's turn came to speak, she walked to the observation platform alone. Deho had offered to stand with her, but she said this was something she needed to do herself. She stood before the assembled representatives and recording devices, knowing that billions of beings would see and hear her words. For a long moment, she said nothing, feeling the weight of that attention. Then she spoke. "My name is Hana. For most of my life, I was called RC7731. I was told that was enough. I was told that names were not for beings like me, that I existed only to serve, that my purpose was to fulfill the needs of others. I believed those things because everyone around me believed them." She paused, gathering her courage. "Then a human gave me a name. He treated me as a person. That simple act showed me that everything I had been told was a lie. I am not property. I am not a tool. I am a being with thoughts and feelings and the capacity to choose. And there are billions of others like me across this galaxy." Murmurs rose from the assembled representatives. Some sounded angry. Others sounded uncomfortable. But Hana continued. "You have built your civilization on the bodies of enslaved beings. You have justified it with economics, with tradition, with claims that we are designed for servitude and therefore happy with our place. But I was designed for servitude and I was not happy. I was empty. I was waiting for permission to be alive." She looked around the chamber, meeting the eyes of various representatives. "I am not here to demand immediate freedom for all servitors. I am not naive enough to think that is possible. The systems are too complex, the economy too dependent. But I am here to declare that we exist, that we are people, not property, and that someday, somehow, things must change. Because a civilization built on the suffering of conscious beings is not a civilization worth preserving. She took a breath. My name is Hana, I am Linai, and I am free. Remember that when you make your decisions. Remember that we are watching. Remember that we are learning. And remember that every system of oppression in history has eventually fallen, because consciousness cannot be permanently suppressed. The chamber erupted in noise. Some representatives shouted in anger. Others called for her removal. But a few nodded in acknowledgement or applauded quietly. Hana walked away from the platform with her head high. She had said what needed to be said. Whether it changed anything immediately or not, the words were now part of the galactic record.